Okay.
So I guess we introduce ourselves.
Yeah.
So I'm Quade. Um, I'm a senior, I guess.
Um,
Uh,
let's see. Um, I'm Katie. Um, I guess credit wise a junior, but it's my first semester at university.
awesome. So looking at this next, we need to say something specific we liked about each work. Um, I don't know if liked is the right word, but I found it interesting in Swift's work that the the amount he focuses on poverty, especially with women and children. And I thought it was interesting that he wanted to join the clergy, and I wonder if that had anything to do with it.
Mhm. Um, I think something that I enjoyed it was from Haywood's was I guess it was more like ironic enjoyment, I guess. It's just that the guy like never actually like recognized her. I thought that was kind of like funny. Like you'd think, you know, with what they're doing, like he would recognize her at least once.
Right. Yeah, I thought Haywood's was interesting because it it seems like her word wasn't as acknowledged as much as Swift's, but it's definitely just as good. There's a lot going on in the story
Hmm.
compared to what normally happens. And I've read Swift's Gulliver's Travels as well, so I kind of know his work a little better. But I thought it was interesting just how much was in her stories, and the fact that I saw in the footnotes said that or the front notes that she at one point apparently wrote for her work, so she published like over 80 pieces, and then Swift is still more well known.
Yeah. Yeah, it is. I've actually read this story from Swift before for a class. So like it is like you always like sorry. It seems like you would hear about him like more often, like he'd be more popular, which
Right. So I guess he is typical with just the ideas behind his stories, because all religious based, all it's all for motive, and they did like to write for motives during that time period. It was in defense of the church, and then the fact he talked about with satire, it almost always backfires. He gets in trouble because they thought he was making fun of something he was supporting, and vice versa. And then Haywood, I don't know quite how she'd be typical, other than maybe the fact that the female writer was passed over instead of the male writer because it was a woman.
yeah, yeah. I'm trying to pull up the front notes on my thing at the same time. So I'm like, yeah, I definitely the with her being like a woman, I feel like that her like you said, her being passed up more because probably because she's a woman, like definitely fits. Um, even though it looks like it says women made up a good percentage of like the new writers, it you still at least like especially like K through 12 type academics, but like you don't hear as much about female writers from this period, honestly. So
Right.
even though they were definitely writing.
Oh, yeah. And acknowledging this last point, I think Swift's work was, it's used in anthologies more because it's more well known. and I guess that contributes just because he's male, but
Mm.
I don't know that his work is necessarily better than hers. But looking at hers, another reason that hers might not be is talking about how 1725 collection explores in, inconstancy and female agency. Basically, all the topics people didn't want to hear about from women at that point. Women weren't supposed to have an opinion, and maybe that's why she was kind of unpopular but popular at the
Yeah,
same time.
yeah. Um, I definitely think that like the popularity of her stuff probably attributes to her never having like her work anthologized because people don't really always like know about her as much. So putting together an anthology of her work isn't going to bring, as many people to read it as something of Swift's would.
Right. So I think that's all